Interesting. I think I messed up my camera. Well, I will work on that in the background here. Welcome to Galadrum, though. This is what I get for playing around with the camera without thinking about whether it would affect this. Oh, hey, there we go. Okay. Well, I can see me there. Let me see if I can see me over here. All right. Remove that. Yes, I'm sure. And then copy that. And then paste. Reference. There we go. Now the real question is, why did that work? What's going on here? But that's okay. Excellent. Oh, there we go. It was just being a ghost. I like it. Okay. Well, technical glitches aside, welcome to Plugging Along, a stream dedicated to Lotro plugins. Hello, Shoreless. Welcome. Last time on Plugging Along, we were fixing bugs in the Opaque Quest Tracker. We made sure that if for somehow width or height or position values, if those got saved as pixels instead of percentages, that everything would load reasonably well. We made several other quality of life improvements and we shipped it. Today, I want to switch focus and spend some time looking at TitanBar. I've been using TitanBar a lot during the Fall Festival, both for tracking currencies, and we've been doing In-League and Ale Association over on Treebeard. And I noticed today that it was tracking the reputation gains just fine, but it wasn't tracking the reputation losses. And so TitanBar thought that I had more reputation with both the In-League and the Ale Association than I actually did, because it was going up, but not back down. And if you haven't done those quests, the basic thing is each time you do an In-League quest, you gain reputation with the In-League, but you'll lose reputation with the Ale Association. So gain 900, but lose 500. But if you do the Ale Association quest, you'll gain 900 there, but lose 500 with the In-League. So a way to get kindred with both is just to do their 11 delivery quests for each one, and you'll net plus 400 for each of those 11. Plus 900 minus 500, plus 900 minus 500, plus 400 times 11, 4,400. You can knock it out in, say, 2 weeks of festivals, which is what we've got. So, like I said, we're working on that, and I noticed that TitanBar wasn't tracking the reputation losses. So we're here in Galadrum, a place where it's very easy to lose reputation with the Galadrum by attacking poor, defenseless animals. And we're going to see, is TitanBar trying to track losses? And if not, would it be possible to add it in? And if it is trying to track losses, why isn't it? What's going wrong there? So that's sort of what we're going to do. We're going to jump right into diagnosing the problem with TitanBar, figure out is it a lack of effort or a lack of implementation, and then see if we can do something about it. So as always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions. This is my general goal for today because it directly impacts me as a player when I'm doing these In-League and Ale Association runs. But that doesn't mean we can't stop and have digressions. It's totally fine. So we're out here outside of Galadrum in Lothlorien, and I'm just going to ride around until I find myself a hapless animal to demonstrate the problem. Oh, but first, I should probably install TitanBar, huh? All right. So, as is usual, before a stream, I go ahead and reset my plugin data and plugin folders to more or less default so that we're at a good starting point. All right. Let me go ahead and switch on over so you can see my desktop view. Excellent. And Lotro Plugin Compendium. Now, I do still have a few things that are under my name installed, but for TitanBar, We'll want to come and install the one being maintained by Duriel. Add that in. Fantastic. And then we can come back in to the System menu, Plugin Manager, refresh because we've added one, and get TitanBar loaded up in here. Bit of a pause there. Excellent. It's got a lot of information to read. Oh, good. And we have found ourselves our first protected animal. Sweet. So if you haven't used it before, then TitanBar is really a way for a bunch of different plugins to be hosted in a single area, or at least conceptually a bunch of different things. So for instance, there is a reputation subsection, and in that reputation, you can click it to open up this window. We can go ahead and try to find the Galadrum, and we want to go ahead and track it, but TitanBar cannot know how much reputation we currently have. This is a limitation in the Lua system. There's no way to ask Lua, what's my reputation with a certain faction? And that's okay. Every time you gain or lose reputation with a faction, that is shown within the chat window. And so that is something that TitanBar can pay attention to. Now, if you're in this window, as we see, right-click it to get its settings with interesting its. That's okay. And your rank, well, I'm going to take a guess and say my rank is Kindred. Excellent. So we're going to go ahead and say Kindred and save. Now, TitanBar by default does not show you a reputation that is maxed out. I wonder if there's a way to override that. Oh, excellent. Thank you. Ah, hey. Charlotte says, is that because it's stored on the server? As far as I know, it is just because there is no way in the Lua API to access the information. Now, whenever I'm uncertain about what's available in the Lua API, I come over here to the API documentation, and the core place I look at for information about me, the player who is currently logged in, is local player. So if we come in and search for reputation, there is no get reputation function. You can get the alignment, you can get attributes, you can get backpack. There's all sorts of things you can do. There are some things that are only available if you have interacted with them. So your vault and your shared storage, I think, are not automatically streamed down from the server. They are loaded the first time you interact with your vault. So either you go to a vault person or you use your subscriber town services. The first time you open that vault, you may notice a little bit of a delay before things load. That's because it's not there. You do have to request it from the server. And so you'll see plugins like Alt Inventory, anything else that interacts with your inventory, your shared storage, your vault, they will not be able to see that until you have interacted with it. But in this case, I don't see a way to get your reputation at all through the Lua interface. And that's probably why I suspect TitanBar went with just chat logging. Just, oh, you've gained reputation. Okay, good enough. All right, so if we go ahead and add, say, Erebor, the Dwarves of Erebor, just for a counterexample. Dwarves of Erebor, I'm currently at 1200 over neutral with them on this character. This character has not gotten to Erebor really. Oops. And then we hover over here, we can see all of the ones I've checked that TitanBar does not think are max are displayed in a list. So we could even get a couple others here. Felagoth, haven't gotten there. Though I've finally gotten to the part of Lord of the Rings appendices where they're talking about how Mirkwood was renamed to, what is it? Aaron Lasgalen. And I was like, ow! That's why it's called Aaron Lasgalen and the Dalelands and not Mirkwood, because after the war it was renamed. It was one of those things where I should have known that, and maybe I did once upon a time, but I did not know it that day. Hello, Just Right. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so we've added a couple reputations here. 3 of them. 2 of them are not full, but the Galadrum is full. And so I'm just going to search for Galadrum here so we only see that. So What we expect to see, based on what I've seen so far, is that I will defeat the Woodland Moose, which is protected. I will lose reputation, but TitanBar is not going to see that that has happened. In fact, let's go ahead and have Galadrum over here for easy access. Can I make that smaller? No. Oh well. So that's the idea. If TitanBar does see that, then cool, that's a bug fix that's happened since the last time I updated, apparently. I guess I could have checked that before. That's okay. So, what do we do for meese? We cook them. Oh well. Alright, we attack them. Okay, so we saw in chat, did we see it over here? Oh, I didn't change the, oh, where does that come in? Advancement, maybe? Let's find out. But we can see in my reputation that I am now an ally, having lost 8, count them, 8 reputation. I'm gonna go have to do a Battle of Lorien or something. And we can see that TitanBar still thinks I am full up with the Galadrum. If I come on in here, it thinks, oh, you're kindred. And it's not a question of it thinking, oh, you're kindred, so you're never gonna change. If I come in here and just say, no, you know what, I'm actually ally with 1,000. Because again, you don't have to tell it the truth, you just have to tell it the number you want it to know about. So if I come over here, attack this woodland moose. Oh no, -8 reputation. So we can see in the advancement channel that your reputation, oh, that's a little low, isn't it? Okay, there we go. Your reputation with the Galadrum has decreased. Okay, yes. Lying to my plugins for shame, you know, yes. Sometimes you just have to lie to a plugin. Somehow I closed that. Okay, so we can see I'm down by 16 reputation here. Excellent. And we can see that Galadrum still are listed at 1,000. So it wasn't just because it said, oh, you're at max, it's never going to change. It is not seeing reputation loss. Okay, cool. Now, a thing that I would like to do is capture this message and save it off. So here's my note about what we're doing today. TitanBar is not seeing reputation losses. And here's my sample of what that would look like. Now, ideally, I would have an easy way to get reputation with them to go back up to kindred. I'm not, off the top of my head, I don't think you get landscape reputation for killing orcs, do you? I'll have to complete some quests somewhere, I guess. But in the meantime, can I find another thing to queue up to defeat? Excellent. All right. Don't go away, Moose. I need you. I'll just set myself on follow. Okay, so that being said, we have seen the problem in action. We have lost reputation, but TitanBar didn't see it. So now comes the investigation. Is TitanBar trying to see it, but failing for some reason? Or is it not even trying to see it because that just wasn't in the mind of the people who made it? So now comes the investigation. I did not do much in the way of previewing the code base ahead of time. This is just going to be a live dig into the plugin. I'm hoping it's going to be successful, but this could be a gigantic failure and a flop. And 2 hours from now, I'll be going, I don't know what's happening. So fingers crossed. Let's dig on in. So we see here the, the original publisher of TitanBar was Havna, so that's where it tends to be stored, even though it's now maintained by Duriel. And that can be one of those things where you're just like, huh, where is it going to be stored? Oftentimes, I will go ahead and look at the plugin itself in the plugin manager and see, is there an obvious thing? Now, it does say it's done by Duriel here. So you'll just have to remember, right? Oh, well. Okay. Nope, not that one. Did I close it? Oh, okay. So here we are in Have No Plugins. We're in TitanBar. Here's stuff. Now, when in doubt, we could just start opening random things. I do see that there is a main.lua. That seems like an excellent starting if I don't see anything else. But I happen to know that each one of the things that TitanBar can do is probably going to be in the control area. So that's a place to start as well. So we have reputation, reputation tooltip, and reputation window. Those all seem like good things to dig into. And then worst case, we know that in order for the plugin to be monitoring chat, it has to be hooking into the chat received function. So we could look at all the places it's doing that and say, what are you doing with that information? Are you trying to look at reputation lost? And the other thing is, what I would like to have, and you know what, this is where I was thinking about the In-League and Ale Association. It's incredibly easy to gain and lose reputation with those two factions. So I might actually give Lothlorien a bit of a miss and go to an In-League and Ale Association so we get both the increase and decrease messages exactly as they come in, which will be very handy when we're searching in the plugin. So first of all, In-League is Kindred. That's very snazzy of me. But the Ale Association, hang on, In-League, I forgot to check it, that's what I was doing. And the Ale Association, I believe I am not. I believe that's what I'm working on. Yes, Ally. It's a work in progress. But ever since Treebeard came out, it's been very hard to dedicate serious gaming time on Evernight because Treebeard's been calling. So, you know. Okay, so I'm going to hop over to the party tree via personal housing. So come on in here, whoops, travel to personal house, because I have a Breland housing house that is just over the far-ranging Stable Master. I highly recommend it, except I have it. Actually, I was really lucky on Treebeard. Our kinship has a Shire neighborhood, and I've also got the house right next to the far-ranging Stable Master. So also recommended. Exactly, Treebeard is calling. Why am I doing a stream on Evernight when I could be doing Treebeard quests? Okay, yeah, so the, whatever it was, High Road? Let's see, house. That was 2 High Road. 2 High Road is just up there, and if you don't care about falling damage, you can launch yourself off that, cliff, land just over there by Wenda, get your rewards. While you're busy using those, your falling damage wears off. It's great. All right, let's get ourselves to the party tree. Exo totally hasn't paused development or as well you level brawler. Well, you've got to have a level 50 brawler, otherwise how can you test it? That's just crazy talk. Okay, so at the party tree, goodness. Is that? Well, that's wild. Oh my goodness, I wasn't even thinking. I ran through on Evernight earlier, but I didn't do the full run. So, new plan. No. New plan, let's go over to Thorns Hall. Now, if you haven't done these quests, the quick version of doing these quests is to start in Thorns Hall, pick up all the Ale Associations, and then go places. Go to Mordor, Exogenesis says. Oh, reputation for both sides. You know, I haven't actually gotten to Mordor on this character. I mean, I've got Stable Masters, I think, but I haven't really done any content. No, this will be fine. I do want to go over and pull up a list for you. Let's see. It's probably in Games, Lotro, and then there we go. Okay, so if you haven't seen it, let me go ahead and open that, minimize it. This is a, well, that just doesn't stay there if I'm interacting with the game, does it? That's okay. So in the Thorns Hall Inn, which you can shortcut your way to, oh, hey, it's festival time, get some geodes. Crack them open and get rid of them. Sweet. So the Ale Association Tavern Keep, once you've run through the Ale Association initiation, has 11 quests. You don't have to pick them up all at once, but with a hunter especially, it is possible to run through them all in maybe half an hour. And so by default, I just go ahead and pick them all up. And then we'll have the freedom of going wherever we want to. I'm using the use key to pop him back up real fast, but I still am having to use the mouse for the rest of it. Okay, get rid of those. So these are the various places one has to go for stuff. Because in order to do the ale association, you can't pick up the items ahead of time. You have to have that quest, go to the specific barkeep, and then get the thing. So for instance, that one that I just picked up, that returns to camp in Harlug. That's okay. But we'll go ahead and return to Bree. Slide that on off here. Now, these quests do have a 1 hour time limit. So in an hour, if I needed to, I would go pick them back up again. But in this case, I'm just going to run myself over to Bartleman Butterbur here in the Prancing Pony. And at that point, we'll probably head over to Thornley's worksite. So super close. In plugin development, it can be very useful to have a debug ability, and it's entirely possible that TitanBar does have this for people who are developing it. But if you go to the options here, options are available by right-clicking on something. Well, that's too bad. Let's see. There we go. Right-clicking on TitanBar. Absolutely. It can be incredibly useful to have a function to say, pretend like I just got reputation or I just lost reputation, to exercise the full code base without having to actually go out and get reputation. Same thing for the deed tracker. One of the things that I should have done really early on, and it took me way too long to think and say, oh, yes, was the ability to pretend like I had just finished a deed. At the time, we were doing lots of deeds, and so it wasn't really a problem. But just arbitrarily being able to say, yep, I just finished Slayer of Breland is really useful. Oops. So if we go to the Plugins Manager, the deed tracker, for instance, oh, I would have to load it. Yeah, we can do that. All right. Sometimes loading a plugin like deed tracker that's a little larger can kind of freeze the game for a second while it's thinking about that. That's okay. Usually it's happening while I'm logging in and I don't even notice it. So in the deed tracker options, there are a bunch of debug options. And so if you're ever doing plugin development, I really recommend being able to cheat. And so these are debug buttons, so they're only meant for me, so they don't make any sense. But this is the completion button. So if I were to come in, oh, this is brand new. So if I wanted to come in here and say Deeds of Breland, this will start just after we found a message in chat, and from there run through the whole code path. Complete. Hey, look at that. Excellent. That's a fun bug. It's possible I made a recent change to the deed tracker that breaks the debug code. We'll circle back around to that. Let me make a note. Okay. We'll make a note down here. Okay. Other things. Fun. So we are, but anyway, that would normally start the process, and then you could see everything go and just reset the data, do it again, do it as many times as you need. Same thing, deed tracker uses where you are to whittle down the possible deeds, because early on in Lotra's history, there's a lot of overlap. Orc Slayer, yeah, there's a bunch of those. Or if I, Wolf. If I search for all the Wolf Slayers, there's a couple. But if you are in Eredluin, you can't be doing anything but Eredluin, because there's no way to drag a wolf over from the Shire, for instance. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk to Wesley here. Wesley Hopwood would very much like me to give him something. Now, if you have an ale association quest, you can't have the relevant in-league quest, but you can do them back to back. So turn on the ale association. Excellent. This is actually really good because we're seeing a standing change, which we'd want to pay attention to also. And we are seeing a reputation change and a different reputation increasing. Excellent. Those are all good things. Now, if I do the opposite, now I can do the in-league quest. I can pick it up from him and then drop it off to him because I have the items in my inventory, all of the different drinks that they're asking for. So when that happens, it goes through the opposite. Ale association has decreased, standing with in-league has increased, and we are now kindred. But that's come in the opposite order than I would normally expect. Looks like it notices changes in standing first and then changes in reputation. That's an interesting choice. I don't think I would have done that way, but that's okay. So we can see ally 2800, but if we go look at the ale association here, it thinks we're at 3,300. It missed us losing those 500 points. Okay, so that's a full documentation of the messages we're looking for, and we're going to use that to try and find where TitanBar is looking for those. Now, first thing I will sometimes do when I'm digging into a project is just go ahead and do a search across multiple files. If your excuse me, if your text editor doesn't allow you to do this, Sublime Text is one that does, but there are plenty of options out there. So here I'm doing a find of all files in this folder or below that contain the text, your standing. Okay, it looks like we don't have your standing, and that's fine. But I was searching in quotes, so that wasn't good. Excellent. Your standing. So now we want to search for your reputation. Interesting. So let's do a different search. Reputation with. Excellent. Okay. So that gives us one location in TitanBar, which is very nice. We don't have to worry about a bunch of different places. Oh, interesting. Chatty just disconnected me, but I'm back. So we have one place where we're looking at reputation. Awesome. This is functions control in the just the TitanBar folder. So have no plugins, TitanBar. What did I say? Functions control, or CTR. I am assuming that means control. Maybe I shouldn't assume that. We're going to go by that. Okay, so line 438. What do we have? All right, we're checking a variable called glocale for are we English, French, or German? Awesome. And then we have the string here, reputation has. Oh, interesting. So that should be increased or decreased. Oh, no. Okay, reputation has, and then has increased. Okay, we have two different patterns going on here. Interesting, okay. But so in order to do all the things it does, TitanBar uses a lot of notation, which looks a little cryptic at first. So RPN might very well be reputation. RPP, I'm not sure. But again, we can do a search and find where, oh, well, yeah. It's defining it in this comment. I like that. So string reputation name. So reputation name and reputation point, RPP. What's an RPP then? Oh, reputation bonus. Nice. Okay. Cool. Okay. We're learning side by side here. Okay, awesome. So we can see that we are looking for increases and decreases, but I'm sorry, we're only looking for increases. Oh, and they've done a concatenation here, so the final string would look like that. I'm gonna go ahead and undo the concatenation. I wouldn't go ahead and push that as a patch, but just for looking at it, it's gonna help me see it all on one line. I'll just make the window bigger here. That's okay. All right, so we have reputation name, reputation with someone. This is a capture group, or what I would call a capture group in normal regular expressions. I'm not sure what Lua calls it, but it's saying in the parentheses, give me the thing. So the reputation with the in-league, or the Ale Association, or with Galadrum, which I always call it the Galadrum, apparently not. So reputation with Galadrum, and that's the thing in the parentheses, that's what you're gonna get back. And then the pattern for the points. Now this is really interesting. You can have, I think, you can have multiple capture groups in one expression. I'm not sure why they've broken it up this way, but different techniques is fine. And here we can see we're looking for has increased by how much. Okay, so, and then if there's an accelerator, we're using different ones. So we'll have to keep in mind that accelerators, because I wasn't using one, accelerators will change that around a little bit. But ultimately, once we have this, if we've gotten to the point where we said, okay, we have a bonus pattern, then stuff is going to happen. Otherwise, let's see. Okay, so we get the name of the faction. So if the name comes out not nil, then we're doing stuff. I'm going to collapse this conditional here and see. Okay, so that's just it. So if the bonus pattern is not nil, I'm going to pretend like I don't care about the bonus pattern right now, because I don't. All right, now I'm just trying to dig into what's going on with the reputation itself. We'll circle back around to that. In fact, all right, let's make a timestamp for decided to ignore bonus logic. Don't remember to circle back to that. Excellent. But in the meantime, we don't care about what happens with the bonus yet. Now, we're doing a match against the points and the message. And, oh my goodness. So if it were me, if I were coding something as large and complicated as this, I would be inclined to say, hey, instead of RPPTS, that would just be reputation points, right? It's fine, it's a little extra typing, whatever. But when I'm working in someone else's code, I do try to, if I'm doing a change, I would try to match that convention. So we're gonna leave it like this. We're gonna get used to seeing it like this because that's an important part of being able to work in someone else's code base, is feeling, getting a sense of what is going to look right and what's going to look weird. Okay. Cool. So what are we doing here? We have the reputation points. And then because those points could have a comma in it for 1,000, we're going to remove that. I'm very curious what happens in German or French if you get 1,000 reputation, but not my problem right now. Why is the comment after the line? That is so weird. If I were writing this, the comment would precede the line instead of coming after it. Just conceptually, that's how I think. The comment explaining what the line is, then the line. Instead of, here's the line, and now here's the rubric on how to read the line. Again, different techniques for different people. It's not that one is fundamentally correcter than the other, but there's definitely one that I'm more used to. Okay. And then they do a search to find the reputation. Now, there's a fun other bug in TitanBar that I've seen where reputation factions that have that have accented characters like Wardens of Numinos or the Rangers of Esteldine. Let's see, Rangers. The Rangers of Esteldine, that there's an accent over the I. Wardens of Numinos, there's an accent over the U, which is lovely, authentic to the source material, but it does cause some some problems for plugin developers. It even causes problems for. You can see here the game has decided to pretend like the U with an accent is the same as U without an accent. Demonstrably not true, right? But for player convenience, so you don't have to remember how to type a Numinos with the U with the accent on your keyboard. Good luck with that. The software is going through and using a special way of comparing that ignores accents. Now, most modern programming languages, C# and whatnot, probably have a way to compare two strings pretending like a U with any sort of an accent is the same as a U without an accent. Lua, I suspect does not have that. So right now, I know there's an outstanding bug in when you're getting reputation Wardens of Numinos where it just doesn't come through. In fact, I fixed that locally for myself the other day. Hang on. What did I change? Now that I think about it, let me come in here. So, yeah, of course. I hear out of the corner of my ear, it works in DTracker. Yeah, of course it works in DTracker. I mean, why would it not? No, I kid. Okay, so we're just going to compare to have no plugins. Let's see what's different. Awesome. Oh, no, just the diffs. No, what are you doing? Really? Oh, do I have an older version? I do have an older version. Well, that's funny. Well, that's not going to be a very useful comparison then, is it? Okay, I will stop getting distracted then. Okay, so we're just counting the number of reputation, and I am very curious where that's defined. Here we go. So again, talking about lots of abbreviations, this is the list of factions. Now, having the context, I can guess that first one is Reputation Menabrie, Reputation Thorns Hall, Reputation Matham Society, Reputation Rangers of Esteldon? No. Really? No. Oh, okay, Rangers of Esteldine. But, choices were made. If it were me, I would have been, if for some reason there was a really compelling reason to do that, I probably would have done Men of Bree, right? Now, nothing that says that you have to do it, but it's a thing. So this is the reputation in the order that's being shown here in abbreviation form. So if we're looking for Galadrum RPG, yeah, RPG, right after The Grey Company and right before Maladrum. Awesome. All right, so back to this. Oh, no. Okay. We were in the same file, so my place has been lost. Okay, so looking through the reputation order, we're going to be comparing the name that we found in chat to the text in the reputation order, and if they match, check if new points is equal or bigger of the max points. Okay, we should do that. All right, player reputation.p, max is the player, if max equals that, then, okay. So it won't let you go beyond the max, which is fine, because you do see the message even if you would overshoot it. Oh, that's delightful. Oh my goodness. Why? All right, let me find where rep type is. Really? So if v equals 2 or 7 or 15, then max minus 1. Otherwise, if it's equal 8, then max minus 1. I assume these are because some of the factions, like, what's the one on the west side of the Wildwood? Some of them go from enemy to ally instead of going all the way up to kindred. Some of them go up to way beyond kindred, Minas Tirith, that kind of thing. The standard neutral, known friend, ally, kindred that you see for so many of them, that's not universal. And they've just hard-coded some indices into an array. And if we're there, then that's different than I would have done. That's okay. I suspect the original code base for TitanBar is a decade old or more. In fact, if we go to Lotro interface and we search for TitanBar, the oldest entry here is 2014 by Habna, and I think everything has been since then. So the oldest one, oh, I'm sorry, it's only 7 years old, 7.5 years old. And so, yeah, Exo says there's one of those moments where they made it before those rep levels existed, and yeah, they've shoehorned this in, quite possibly, right? They might have just looked at it and said, okay, that's the pattern, it applies for everything, and then new factions come out that don't apply to neutral to kindred, and they're like, nuts. And so you just add an exception, and then you add an exception, and an exception, and it just snowballs. I could totally believe that's what happened. So I'm not trying to cast any doubt on the ability of the person who wrote this, right? We all will occasionally say, it's just easier to just do this, and maybe I'll come back to it later when I have time, because this is a volunteer thing. Like, no one's paying us to make TitanBar. No one's paying us to do plugins in general. So sometimes you just cut corners, and maybe this was a corner cut. That's okay. So if the totals are greater than max, then we don't want to overshoot. We'll just go to the max. Awesome, love it. Oh, okay. Here's where we're saying, are we going to change levels? I think. Neat. Why is Chatty continuing to disconnect me? Oh, well, hopefully I don't miss anyone's chat.
I'm checking. So far you haven't.
Thank you. Okay, so I should probably look back and figure out what tote is supposed to be here, because I'm curious what's happening here. But we're doing a string format. Oh, that's so sad. Oh, are we storing it somewhere else? Fascinating. Okay. So they're storing a string formatted thing, and then they're doing arithmetic on it. Again, choices were made. Okay, so that's okay. That's the percentage. Interesting. No, why are they using the percentage? No, it's not the percentage. Sorry, that's formatting as a floating point number with 0 decimal places. Interesting. Okay. Well, we've added the points, we break, we save the player reputation, and then we update the reputation. Presumably this is more about saving to a file, and this is more about updating the UI to reflect what we've just done under the covers. No problem with that. And then updating a control thing, sure, that sounds great. Reputation, interesting. Okay, so that's kind of digging into a little bit what's going on here. Now, I did hide the bonus stuff. And now I'm going to unhide it because I am a little curious. So we have the bonus amount, and total equals, so that's the original total. And again, if it were me, I would maybe say old total, and then new total equals old total minus the RP bonus, which not sure what's going on there yet. So the first two things that occur to me are it would be really neat if I could trigger this function more arbitrarily. But the second thing I think of is we have things that are specifically looking for has increased by. And we don't need that. If we just say has something by, in English at least, that would cover the has decreased and has increased by. Now, in another language, we might have to do something a little bit more tricky to collapse both of those into a single match. But in this case, we can just say, I don't care what's there, but it has to be followed with by. So absorb as much extra stuff as we want. Now, we are demanding a space here and a space here. But in this case, we know it's increased or decreased, and so that's okay. So that's a thing we could do. And then we could run with that. But we do need to know if it was increased or decreased. So a thing we could do is capture the thing. And then we can say, was that increased or was that decreased? Now, I would have to double check the capturing because I'm pretty sure it would come back in here. RP name and then increase or decrease, I might call it. Or in TitanBar speak, maybe IOD or something. IKID. So I think that's how that would work, but I should really double check myself because capturing stuff in Lua might be a little bit different than I'm thinking. So if we do a string.match, let's see, match returns captures from the pattern. And if it specifies no patterns, then everything's returned. Okay. Well, that certainly sounds like what I'm looking for. String.match. Let's see. Okay, so we can see this example of two capture groups, or returns a tuple of two items. Sweet, perfect. So we could do that where we say, okay, I need to have this. Oh, that's fascinating. So in German, the RP and pattern changes if you have a bonus. Sure, why not? Huh, okay. Localization's tricky, man. Cool. So we can capture that. And then the has increased by. We can go ahead and say, I don't care what it was, but it was changed, increased, decreased by whatever. Okay. But you know, coming back to it, I really need a way to trigger this logic because this is, you know, I can't go out and kill an animal for every time I want to see what happens here. So this function here, again, I wouldn't commit this, but for now, let's go ahead and extract it on out to here. And because it was quite indented, we're just going to unindent that for a little bit. Okay, but we do need a name for this, and this is the process reputation, no, check chat for reputation change. Sweet. And do it. And process if present, right? Like this function does numerous things. And if you name a function for all the things it does and it starts to look ridiculous, your function might be doing too many things. Ideally, you'd have a function that says, is it there? And then another function that you would call if it is there. But that's okay. We're going to go ahead and just call a named function instead of, I know, it's still ridiculous, instead of an inline function. Hopefully I haven't done any mistakes there. So we're going to go ahead and use the built-in reload feature and see if there's any syntax errors. There are not syntax errors. That's very exciting. All right, the second thing we want to do while we're digging into this is to say, hey, I want to activate this. Now, if I was more familiar with the UI system, I might add a button somewhere. But the great thing about chat messages is you can just look at what people are saying and do stuff from that too. So if I were to say, TitanBar, go to sleep, I could look for that message or something silly, right? So the first thing we want to do is oh, that's interesting. They don't check what channel this comes from, which I feel like is a mistake. You would want to be checking the advancement channel for reputation changes, because if you don't, I really have to wonder, can I just say this? Would it do it? Okay, let's find out. So currently I have Galadrum, I have listed as 1,000. So we're gonna go ahead and fake up a message and see what happens. So your reputation with Galadrum has, I want that to be increased by 8. And let's just see if it does it, because that'd be funny. It does. That's an example of why you would want to see where the message is coming from. It's I am really curious if someone was in my fellowship, or if I just sent that to world, would that make everyone who was using TitanBar's reputation go up by 8? So I am hopefully going to get a compatriot to log onto Evernight here, and I will give her that message to send in fellowship chat, and we'll see what happens. That being said, I recommend not trying to break everyone's Titan bars, but I would, in the code, I will go ahead and add a special check for this. So for this reputation, because the only thing we're doing in here is reputation, we're going to do an initial if, and something, something, something is something, something, something. Or if it is not, then return, right? So that's the check we're going to add here. And we're going to go to the documentation here. And in the received message, we see that the args is the event arguments. That's not very helpful. When in doubt, you can always decode these things. But I do have, in the D tracker, I do also need to look at the chat. And so we're going to come on in and look for channel. Oops. That's not helpful. Okay. Well, that's funny. Am I not looking at stuff either? I must be. All right, args, message, chat type. There we go. So we're looking at the chat type member of args. So if chat type is not something useful, in this case, we want advancement. So that is turbine.chatType.advancement. Now it's autofilling, so maybe this is already happening. Is it already happening? No, maybe? No, that's for Lotro points. That's delightful. Let's see, where else did they use this? Oh, but I'm going to send that message. Oh, thanks, Vaz. Yes, it is chat type. All right, I'm just going to pull up Discord, message that over, and see what happens. That'll be a delightful test. In the meantime, where else did we see that? We saw that for low tro points. Nice. And renown points? What's a renown in infamy? Is that war? Is that the war? Oh, sorry, that's what I mean. PVMP. Neat. All right, you. Here is your message. And then, where else? Okay, so just to check, I have 1008. Now she's going to send that in fellowship. Somewhere. Okay. I've got 1016. That's delightful. Excellent. Okay, so renown. Okay, awesome, Baz. Thanks for confirming that is PVMP and infamy. So TitanBar, because this was missing, it turns out it is currently susceptible to a bit of an exploit where it's paying attention to world and fellowship and kinship. So again, be nice. Don't go spoil other people's tracking because it's kind of annoying to go back in and fix them all. But this patch will include this check, which will include performance because it will stop looking as soon as it says, oh, that's not advancement, which is probably 99% of chat, right? We always want to bail out as soon as we can before we start doing the string processing. So this will just be a marked improvement for all chat processing. So that, yay for that, and also your kinmates can't mess with your values, so that'll be nice too. Awesome. So now that we know it's advancement, we can move on in here. That's just delightful. Thank you so much to my partner in crime, Tyfaced here, for confirming that particular goof. Okay, so now that we can see that advancement is there, we're actually going to add an extra exception to that. Or actually, no, we're going to, we'll include that later. But for now, it's actually really useful because I can go ahead and just put arbitrary messages in and see it happen here. So here's where we can start spitting back information as we see it. So for instance, we can go ahead and say turbine dot shell dot writeline, and then we can say RP name, and then increase or decrease. And that'll be a nice way to just double check our assumptions here. So I'm going to do a reload on TitanBar. It's going to fail. Excellent. What did I do? Oh, interesting. 476. Yeah, looks like that was not the right way to get string.match. Fantastic. Okay. Let's go back to Lua because we were just seeing. Oh, yeah, I didn't actually see it in situ. I just saw it in there. All right, string match multiple captures. Let's take a look at that. Interesting. Should I be using string.find, not string.match? Let's find out. This is where I have a weakness. I don't have a really firm grasp of string manipulation stuff, string.find, string.match. And so, wrong window. I'm wondering if it's the local that's getting me into trouble. So I'm going to remove that for a moment. Failed to import. Awesome. Well, at least we're getting the same message. That's nice. Oh my goodness. I had missed my double period to concatenate two things together and was totally misdiagnosing it. That's fun. Okay, so let's just double check that that was the problem. Excellent. If it takes more than a second to load, I think it's all promising here. Okay, so we have seen that it's going to go ahead and load stuff. Oh, that's fun. Oh, well, it's certainly not finding it, so we can see. Oh, Baz says there's a website where you can test your Lua pattern matching. Super helpful with explanation of what you create. Nice. Well, I suspect if you link it here, it'll get squelched. But if you don't mind being squelched, I'll repost it once I double check that it's not, or ghastly. Okay, so this is null, which is totally fine. They do not have a dump function. Excellent. I don't know how to grant you permission. Sorry, Moomba is giving information there. You should ask for permission. It's like, yeah, I told you to do it, but I don't know how to tell Moobot that I told you to do it. Awesome. So here we go. And this is an example of a delightful regular expression. We're going to go ahead and nix that and come back in to here. And so if we come in here and paste in our regular expression, we can see it's breaking it down. Although, I'm sorry, I keep calling it regular expression. I know that it's not really a regex. It's a Lua pattern matching, but I'm going to keep making that mistake. Just be aware it's not a regex. Okay, reputation with, so that's matching literally. Capture group 1. And I say anything matches, allow as many as I want, and then has, and then another capture group, and then by. That's totally fine. Now, I'm really used to a dump function, which will both write out tables and also, if you try to use a null character, it just says null instead of crashing like this right here. So I'm going to go grab that. And again, I'm not going to push it out, but I find it very useful to have as a general function. And this is just lifted from either the Lua programming guides or general community stuff. It's nothing particularly special there. We're going to come on in. We're just going to paste it right here because, again, I just want access to it here. And then, where's my turbine in? .shell.write. Then we can just go ahead and say dump and wrap that, and then dump and then wrap that. And if it's a table, it'll split it apart. And more importantly, if it's null, it'll stop all this nonsense here. Great. Okay. Oh, neat. Oh, that's interesting. This is getting processed every time I get chat on any channel. And so I was thinking, oh, why is it nil? And the answer is because someone somewhere said something that hit world or trade or LFF. That's a problem. Or rather, that's going to be a little annoying. So this check here, we are going to make use of it, kind of. So we want to check for that and, or. So if it's not advancement, and we're going to add an extra one here, or args.chatType is not turbine.chatType I'm going to say is a real thing, but I'm also going to come double check it. And oh, good, say is fine. Excellent. So, really, did I misdo my parentheses? I might have. Let's see. Oh. I'm going out of my mind. Why? How do I check for inequality? Oh, of course. I don't know what is wrong with my brain today, but I'm so used to all the spelling out of and, or, and whatnot that I just ran with it. But of course, the tilde equals is what I was going for. Okay, so now we have this is loaded, and we can see that if I say, yo, well, I was really expecting to see TitanBar not liking that. I'm going to copy this message again, come back in. 32, okay. Okay, it's still being excluded. Oh. Wait a second, it was working before. What did I do? Yeah. EXO, does my own message get parsed through say, well, I was certainly thinking so. But you know what? There's two things. Let's go ahead and turbine.shell.writeLine. We'll just say args.chatType. Let's just see it all. And then, yeah, we saw it working before. It's something's wrong with this check. It's being too restrictive. So, just for trying things out. Okay, so that's coming in on chat 5. Awesome. We don't see the numbers here, but oftentimes the other Lotro interface wiki API will have the numbers, and that can be just a useful little lookup. So turbine, we're going to come into chat type, and 5. That's a, well, what am I doing wrong then? Because this one's working. All right, well, when in doubt, comment it out, try it again. It's true, I'm flashing it around very fast. Oh, if it's not that, you're right, it should be an and. That would do it. You know, I wrote and at first, and I was like, that can't be right. And I second guessed myself. Okay, so we can see we parsed the type is increased, and that went up by 8. Awesome. So we're at, whoops. We were at 1040, now we're at 1048. Awesome. Now if we were to come in, I don't know why those windows are backwards, but it's really messing me up. And use decreased. Now, I'm guessing we'll see that yes, it has parsed Galadrum and decreased, but it doesn't know what to do with that yet. Neat. Okay. Now, we saw in this function that there's some complex things going on. We see a couple of things. So if the mess, okay, so a thing that I am very used to from other languages like C#, using Visual Studio, is the idea that you can reverse a check to unindent things. So for instance, this is a conditional, and everything else in the function is happening if the message is not null. If the message is null, we don't want to do anything. So let's just do that. If args.message equals nil, then return end. So we know that this check is always true then, and we can just get rid of it. And what that does for us is this whole function unindents and hopefully is a little bit easier to understand. Amusingly enough, it does make rpmess a global variable Bez, which does make one curious, is it used anywhere else? And the answer is no, it is only used in this function. That's a good call. While we're in here, we could go ahead and local that up because we are only seeing it in this function. And that's just nice. That's nice not to pollute the global namespace with that. Good call. Okay, so again, I wouldn't necessarily do all of this in the finished product, but sometimes tweaking how the function is laid out, tweaking white space, reorganizing things can really help understand and make sure that we're making the correct change and the minimum change. Okay, so speaking of which, this is a thing. This is a thing. Let's see. And then here is that. So we are grabbing that increase or decrease right now. Awesome. Is the rest of this just one thing? It is. All right. And again, we can do that same early if rpmess equals nil or rpname equals nil, then return end. And this is just your standard inversion of a Boolean statement. Oh, what is that? Oh, it's been a long time since I had to put a name on that. So if you have not and not, you can invert that to is or is. And you'll get the opposite of it. Okay, so both of them had to be not nil. So if either of them are nil, do an early exit. And then, bam, one more level of indentation down. Cool. Okay. So again, I'm just going to reorganize the comments there because they're driving me a little nutty. Let's see. Baz asks, are you an if variable is not null then person or an if variable then person? I am a reducing indentation person. So in this case, we're seeing a couple of checks that are basically, if this check fails, do nothing in this function, right? Just pretend we have nothing else to do, we're done, return. But in the way this was written, it was doing it to say, rather, if these checks are good, then do the rest of the function. And so I'm just inverting them to say, if there's nothing to do, then do nothing. And that lets us unindent, which lets us pick apart the logic, like what matters and what was just that surrounding conditional to make sure we had good checks here. And that's another reason to keep your function doing small chunks of things, because a lot of times your function will do a thing or do nothing, right? And if you're doing nothing, you can just stop being in the function whenever you detect that that's okay. So as you get further down the function, you have presumably cleared these checks. For instance, RP mess is not nil, RP name is not nil. Back here, we saw the message is not nil. These are mandatory checks for the behavior of the function. So in this case, what we just saw is that if it's a not null, then the rest of the function body needs to be indented. And then if as long as both of these are not null, then the rest of it's indented. So in this case, I'm just, this makes it a little bit easier for me to read the logic of the function. Because that's what all of those indented blocks were meant to do, is to say this only happens under this case. But this says that too. There's also, there's an idea called locality of code. Would I agree that having the chat type check is unnecessary overhead? Quite the opposite, actually. I would say the vast majority of chats that come in... Oh, moving it outside this function. That's a good question. Where is it being called? No, it has to be called... That function is the first thing that gets access to this. So it has to be somewhere. Now, it could be the first thing that happens, and then we call a different function. But this is the first line that we get a message and can start inspecting it to see if we want to do something with it. And then if we go ahead and say, oh, if it's not a channel that we're interested, we're out, that'll eliminate most chat, because most of the time you're not gaining reputation unless you're running around in the lowlands and killing goblins and orcs, because a gaining reputation comes from that, which is lovely. But most of the time you're not getting advancement text. Does that make sense? Cool. Okay. So there's a concept called locality of code, where it is helpful to have code be visible if it relates to something else. And so the idea being captured here is that if either of these is nil, then we do not want to be in this function anymore. And the way that was expressed before was by having a bunch of code indented, and after all of that, you could collapse it down and say, oh, nothing else happens in the function. But you had, I mean, if you don't have a text editor that lets you collapse functions down, you're just left with scrolling, and it's like, I think this is the end of the function. Nothing else seems to be happening. I'm lining up all of my ifs, ends, and okay, yeah, I've convinced myself we're done with the function. And this is a much more clean way of expressing these must be the case or else we're done. And so there's a locality of code here that hopefully makes it easier for you later on, or a fellow programmer to come in and say, oh, okay, then that's what's happening. That's why we're making the check, because it's an early out. So, cool. All right, so reputation name. I thought we already had the reputation name. Oh, of course. The comment was after it, and it's got moved around a little bit. Okay. So we'll just make a comment here. Check for a bonus. No. Get the bonus value. Now, it's been a while since I have had reputation bonus. I don't remember what that looks like or why we care about the bonus value. Does that matter? I would have thought you get a total amount and then it tells you how much of that was bonus. And now I'm wondering if that has changed somewhere along the line and if this is still old code. So we have reputation accelerators if one wanted to spend Lotro points, and why not? Help support the company and all that. That makes this a fun little game. One can go ahead and buy reputation accelerators. However, I just bought an expansion that seems to come with them. Oh, that's virtue. Reputation. Oh, maybe I don't have any accelerators. All right, well, back to the store. Why did I close you, store? That was a mistake. 250 plus 5,000 enhanced reputation. Sure. That low LP total is looking nice. You know, I bought that in the hopes that they would put carryalls on sale on Treebeard. And you know what they haven't done? That yet. So I'm hoping maybe for a Christmas sale. Oh, reputation accelerators can also be bought in the skirmish camp, says the great philosopher Vrumfundle. Excellent. Oh, hey, lesser deed acceleration. Oh, no, that's not helpful at all. Okay, well, skirmish camps, those sound great. Oops, no, not that. Let's return debris. Surely there's a closer skirmish camp, though. Oskudruth probably has one closer. I don't know. You know, I so rarely go to a skirmish camp that's not Southbury that I'm actually drawing a blank on what would be closer than just going to Bree and riding to Southbury via Sailmaster. Oh no, I'm failing all those quests. That's okay. I'm just going to Southbury. So from Pondo, who do I talk to down here? Dun, 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 dun. Maybe curiosities. Reputation. Nope. Oh yeah, there we go. They are the curiosities vendor. Awesome. I think we got there at the same time. All right, so I seem to have plenty of both. We'll just go ahead and grab that. That's fine. Although, then I'll have to find a way to increase or decrease my reputation. Cool. Okay. So I have a reputation accelerator. You can tell because if you go to the reputation tab, you see bonus remaining 1,000. Awesome. Well, I'm guessing that that applies to taskbar items as well. So let's go get a task board. Cool. So like I said before, 2 High Road, a Lovely House in Breetown. And if you happen to be wanting to do task boards, you just crater. Great. Okay. So Shattered Hatchet. I wonder if I have reputation that can be gotten. You know, I didn't actually think about that. I wonder if I'm maxed out. Oh, good. Shattered Spear. Surely I'm not maxed out with all of these. So we're going to come in here. I'm going to type in the wrong window. That's disappointing. And let's check that out. Riders of Rohan. Perfect. So we have Shattered Spears. Come on in. Excellent. I will accept that quest. And I will finish it. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that off because that was a thing that I wanted to have documented. I highly recommend if you are doing chat parsing, like they are doing here, have examples. Even better if you date them, but if you have source control, that will date it itself. But yeah, text string reputation name and reputation point pattern. Sure, you know, go ahead and post that in, right? If you have examples from each language, even better. Right now I just have the English, but then this is what you're looking for, right? Now, I'm pretty sure if your reputation decreases, the bonus does not apply. I'll go ahead and write off to Lothlorien here, because that's an easy way to lose some. What's that? Oh, neat. Oh, cool. Hey, there's a hunter. Maybe that hunter wants to go off to Karis Galadrum. Okay, so your reputation has increased by 600, 300 from bonus. So I'm very curious. I wonder if once upon a time that text was your reputation has increased by 300, plus bonus of 300 or something. And so the plugin needed to add those two together to get the total actual value. So that's the mental model that I have for what TitanBar is doing with that bonus value. And so with that, I want to dig back into the code a little bit and see, is that what's happening? Also, does that pattern even match? Or if that was the case, and this has changed, is the bonus pattern no longer able to match because the words have changed? And so it's never firing at all, which is the kind of thing that can happen when we're doing chat parsing, because any minor changes that Standing Stone Games makes, which they're free to do at any time, it can break chat parsing because these subtle differences can go unspotted, or big difference like this, maybe that's a good thing that it's broken it because the logic has changed. Oh good, here's a protected moose. Okay, good news. You do not lose bonus experience, but neither do you lose less experience because of the bonus. I was half expecting to only lose 6 there. That's okay. Oh, you fool, you were following me. You too have lost reputation. That's okay. We'll do a defensive Lorien or something and get a 700 reputation. We'll be fine. It's funny. This red fox is not protected. Oh, but I can't harm it. Okay. Okay, stick around, Moose. So that's good information right there. So, like I said, if you're doing any chat parsing, keep samples of that around. If you're going to go through the trouble of discovering what you're parsing, put it in a comment. I did the same thing with the Hunter Deadly Decoy plugin, actually. If we go back in Hunter Deadly Decoy, and then I don't even know the main. Sure. It would be in strings, of course, because that's where these were. So this is exactly the kind of documentation I'm talking about. The deploy, this is the deploy text. This is the decoy deploy text, or at least a sample of it, right? You can kind of extrapolate from this. Oh, that's the name of the player, and etc. And these were a bunch of different examples that I was seeing for the damage text. So I was trying to craft a pattern match that would work on every single one of these, despite their variances. And having them documented meant it was really easy for me to kind of do a visual and say, yes, I think that'll work. Same thing for the defeated. There were multiple different ways to see that defeated message come in. For decoy, deadly decoy, master trappers, deadly decoy, depending on your levels of yellow line hunter. So when I come back in, that's funny. My phone had an alarm. When I come back in 6 months or a year from now, if something is not working, I have documentation here about what I was expecting to be parsing. And the first thing I can do is say, has the text that's coming in changed? And it'll be really easy to tell that because I have this historical record of what the text was now. And in a year from now, if it turns out they've reorganized the text a little bit or something like that, or 5 years from now, 10 years from now, then it'll be one of those things where I can be like, okay, here's why this was the way it was, and now we can adapt. So I highly recommend documenting any chat that you are parsing. That's a lesson I have learned. I didn't do it very much on the D tracker, but I did do a lot on the Deadly Decoy. Okay, cool. That digression aside, we have this. Awesome. And we could guess that the French alphabet is going, with accents, is going to be the increase or decrease for the French. I don't know about the German. I'd have to run that through Google Translate. But again, focusing on the English part here. Okay, so the accelerator, what are we looking for? Has increased by, and that much from bonus. So let's look and see what we're doing with that bonus, because I'm very curious. And also, would that have worked? Okay. So your reputation has increased by something, and then escaping the parentheses with a % sign. Otherwise, it thinks you're starting a capture group. And then same thing over here. So we are looking for an actual open parentheses and then something in there from bonus. Okay, that looks like it would match, right? And in fact, we can, right, I do have that. So we could go ahead and, if that's not nil, then we can get the bonus, okay? That's just a local. Fascinating. Let's go ahead and see what the behavior is. I'm gonna come back in here and to the Galadrum and change that back to 1,000 because it's a nice, easy number to work with. Again, lying to plugin for its own good. Now the Galadrum is 1,000, awesome. And let's see, let's go ahead and, oops. Yeah, we'll save this off because I'm gonna do it more than once. Your reputation with Galadrum has increased by 600, 300 from bonus. What is that? Oops, what does that look like when I run it through here? Okay. Well, it sees 600. What are we doing with it then? Bonus equals that. Total equals player. So I think I need to understand what's going on here. Let's go ahead and turbine.shell.writeLine dump out that. Because I don't actually understand the data structure involved here. And now's a good time to step back and say, what is this talking about here? Okay, so we are reloaded. So we're just going to send that same string back. Okay, that's fascinating. So player reputation, PN. Do we know what PN is? Maybe that's player number. Maybe I have to store multiple players in here. And then reputation accelerator. Oh, that could be a reputation accelerator. But why is it? Okay. Do we know? Do we care? Ah. Aha, okay. That is a feature I didn't realize TitanBar had. TitanBar understands. I don't know why it does, but I guess if you wanted to track it, okay. So TitanBar understands that you can have apparently up to 80,000 reputation acceleration. Presumably that's just an arbitrary cap, but maybe it's an in-game one. And it will track how much. Okay, so if I do it again, we're at 400. If I do it again, we're at 100. And if I do it again, we're at 0, so it stops. Oh, Exo says that 80,000 is an in-game cap. That is fascinating. I wouldn't have thought there'd be a need for that, but all right, cool. So what we're doing here is just taking the total, it says. Oh, you know, that was foolish of me. I lost it. Let's come back in and reset it to 1,000. Oh, I wasn't losing it. It's spitting out each time. Okay, so P is the number that we're talking about. V is possibly, is it being shown here? Let's, okay, looks like V is whether it's shown, viewed maybe, visible. R is uncertain. Okay. So we're getting the current value of the bonus. We're reducing that. If we're below 0, then we are 0. Then we update the bonus to that. Why are we storing it as a floating point string to 0 decimal precision? I do not know, but we are. That's okay. So get the bonus value is maybe an incomplete explanation of what's going on here. If there is a bonus value, subtract it from the tracked value. Okay, that might be a little bit more of a descriptive what's going on. Baz says, I hate one-letter variables. So there might be a reason for doing it, but I agree. Like, is it an optimization thing? It seems premature. But if you are developing a plugin of this complexity, presumably your head's down on it for weeks or months at a time, and you kind of get a blind spot of what is obvious and what is ridiculously obscure. Like it all blurs together. So again, I'm not trying to be down on the original plugin person. I tend to want to over spell out what a variable is to start with, and then if that gets cumbersome, then maybe rein it in a little bit. But that's okay. Actually, a thing we could do is go find where player reputation is defined. And it's possible that it's a little bit more sensible. Maybe there's comments or something. Okay, it looks like there are some comments in here for adding reputation. That's cool. Okay, let's come back up to here. This definitely seemed like a thing in the, where was it, load. Player reputation. Oh, that's painful. All right, you got me curious. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. What's LOTA? League of the Axe. Okay, yeah. So League of the Axe is one of the special ones. Okay. And then 2 before that. Lost South of Forkel. Okay, yeah. You do start with... but you can go to Kindred there. I thought. Okay. Rep types. P. V, R, T, N... Yeah, not so much in the way of comments. That's a little disappointing. Oh well. Okay, so this is neat, but totally unrelated to what we're doing. So that's cool. If we're losing reputation, we're not going to see bonus. And if we're gaining reputation, it's already doing its thing fine. So no worries. So here's the reputation points. Here's replacing the comma. Awesome. Here's finding it. Now, again, this is all multiple nesting here. Bass says, imagine making a massive plugin and not adding comments. You know, it's one of those things, right? Like comments are for future you. You know what you're doing right now. And so it takes a certain amount of practice and a certain amount of experience of, yes, I'm going to forget most of this. Like it feels like I know it and I'm going to know it forever and I'm so into it. And it's really easy to not pay attention to how quickly it all just goes away when you're on a new project, because all of those little details that you have in your head are there because your head's down on it. You go away for 6 months, you come back, not so much. Yeah, exactly. Maybe future me can just deal. I'm feeling lazy. So it takes that experience of multiple projects and being like, why did I do this? Why did I do this? Why did I do this? And then hopefully you finally internalize, okay, I guess I'll do it. But okay, so we're finding the reputation and we're checking, is the name equal to the name? Then we're doing stuff, right? This is, even if we only ever find the reputation name once, this feels like a place where we're doing a double nesting here. Maybe we don't want to do that, right? So if we have to do a linear search like that, and we don't. That's an important thing, right? We don't need to do that. If we had a table that just had name to number, a reverse lookup table, this is an order 1 operation instead of an order n. So it says, as long as I never make a time machine, I'm safe from future me's anger. It's true. All you will get is future you's disappointment. So a thing that you can do, let's see, do I have an example of this? So yes, okay. So I had 2 different lookup tables for deed informations. If you had the index of it, the page, the tab, the whatever, you could get the information, including the name. But if you had the name, I was doing a linear search through 3,000 deeds, and I said, oh, wait, that's not a performant ID way to do it. What if instead you just said, oh, here's the name, here's the ID? So because there are not that many factions, you could see how this is just, Rangers of Estelden equals whatever. Yep. And so it's just, you just go to the table, you grab the index, you're done. It's fine. Like they didn't have to do that. But this linear searching every time you're doing reputation, it's not necessary. It's just a choice. So that being said, if we're going to do it, let's at least pull it out into a function. And then if we make that function better later, super easy. Get faction number. Now let's call it an index. Index from name. All right. And then this is name. And we'll just pull out that functionality here. For I equals 1 to rep order, do this. Now, let's see. Name is that. I didn't grab all that I wanted. Now, we are going to have to be careful. They're preemptively grabbing V here. And we are going to want to grab that. We're going to want to remember that. So if, what on earth is L? Hang on a sec. What is L? Okay, so we want the index. My goodness. Return I. End. Now, what if we don't find it? When that variable strikes again. I have an exception for the letter I, maybe J, maybe K, depending on how many nested loops you have. But L? L? Capital L? This is just un me. Okay, so that being said, it looks like we don't use V at all. Name, we do use. We don't need to. We could just use that in there, but it's fine. Rep order doesn't obviously look like it contains names, and so assigning a value in rep order to name tells us, okay, that's the name of a faction. In fact, we could say rep faction name. All right, we could give it a little bit more clear of a name. And then the parameter we're getting in, again, this is a scene name, perhaps. Oh, man. Oops. Yeah, I'm making these changes, but what is... Oh, yeah. No. Oh, that's inconvenient. And what is RP name? Is RP name what I want to be passing in? It probably is. Okay, that's what I'm passing in. So RP name is scene name. Awesome. And then faction name here. So if the L of faction name equals C name, is this just the language strings? Is that what it is? It probably is that. I wonder if there's a strings there. Okay, I have become curious. So where is L? There we go. Okay, so there's a locale file, and that's where all the language strings are defined. Now, if you've seen some of what I've done before, I tend to prefer not single character names, but also doing a little bit of nesting. So here, everything is just at the L level, and we've got a bunch of strings. And so they're using this coding convention of having prefixes and spelling things out with abbreviations and whatnot to avoid collisions. And that's a way to do it. And there might be reasons to do it that way. But if you don't have reasons to do it that way, I would recommend something a little bit more. Yeah, sure. This is not perfect, but something a little bit more hierarchical. So within now, you could call it L. I'm calling it lang here. Somewhere, whatever you call it. That was just what the plugin I based this on was calling it. So for consistency, I just did that. And within that, we have commands, we have status, we have options, and you can nest this as much as you want, as long as you're willing to use that every time you call it. So you're going to be a little bit more explicit at the call site that this is lang.options.hide completed progress bar. But hopefully that gives you that code locality where you're like, well, I don't know exactly what the string is, but it's probably about the options text for the progress bar, right? Yeah, Exo says nesting goes well until you realize you've created L skill. Now in Lua you can do L.skill without the quotes, so at least you can avoid a couple characters there. So if we were to look and see where this was used, let's see, that's probably in the options. So notice that I didn't actually refer to it that way. Like I had a function that knew I was going to pass it something in that table. So add option, it took this and it has the option name, and it just knows that's going to be in lang.options. So I didn't even have to type it out. So anyway, so consider a nested hierarchical if your strings are running away from you, because these comments are the only things organizing different similar strings together. Baz is providing alternate ways to struggle with the nested things that are named the same. Okay, so that was a fun little dig into things. So we have language for faction name. That is to say, in the rep order, we're getting an abbreviation. So we saw that rep order is, let's see, is that in here? It is not. Rep order. Where is that? Rep order equals. I know we're seeing this. There we go. So rep order we know is going to be things like this, which is language independent. And that is a reason to do it. So we're expecting something like reputation menabri from rep order. And so if we do a language lookup of that, we are going to see in English, it's going to be menabri, and of course in French and German, it's going to be something else. And that's what we're looking for. Here's where that problem slipped in for Rangers of Estelgene and Wardens of Numenor. Somehow this is not working on some systems, definitely not mine. Whereas if I do a copy paste of the text with that accent, on my system, saving it as a UTF-8 file, it works. So that was probably the change that I made. That being said, we have V is not necessary here. So we are going for each one, we're going through rep order, we're getting the faction name, and then localized faction name equals L faction name. And faction name is actually, I would say that's a terrible thing to call it because it's not a name. I would say that is faction code, right? And then localized faction name, if that is the scene name, then return I. Awesome. And what that gets us, after we go through all of that, is we can come in here and say get faction, we can go ahead and say local I equals get faction index from name. And that's, I wonder if that I was global. Interesting. We can go ahead and do that where RP name is passed in. And then when you're done with this, I guess the only question is what happens if we don't find I? Otherwise, return -1, possibly 0. I would say -1. So if I equals -1, then return end. Cool. Because that's the behavior of this. If we don't find it, we just abandon the function. Okay, so we did have a local v equals that. We had a local name. Are we going to use it? We are. Okay. And then we no longer need that because we already have the I. So we get rid of 2 levels of indentation there. Oh, that's so funny. There was a break, but we don't need that anymore. Break would exit the for loop early. We are getting the effect of that by doing a return. So if we had a local I and we were doing I equals, then we could do a break and then return I at the end. Unnecessary here. Okay, so we can continue on here with less indentation, which is going to make it easier to understand what's going on. And I know I'm digging into that a little, I keep repeating that, but if you're having trouble understanding what's going on, as I certainly was, then simplifying the logic a little bit, reducing indentation, can help make sense of what's important and what's not. So that's just what I'm doing right here. Okay. So V, what is a V? And we see its reputation type. I don't know why they called it V. I don't understand that yet. But we know that that's how it's determining maximum levels of stuff with this exceptions. Again, there could be a lookup table for this. Exo says V, very important variable. Yes. Yes, if it were me, I would have a lookup table. And for each, yeah, it could be the faction name, RPMB, Menabri, and that entry equals whatever. And then all of this is simply that, right? Or I'm sorry, all of this, any of this messing with V's. But that's not what we have, and that's fine. So let's walk through. In fact, let's just move the initialization of V on down to where V is being used. That'll hopefully clear things up a little bit. Okay. Well, that's an exciting sound of fireworks outside. Okay. Now, we already documented what we're expecting to get out of rep order, and that is being used down here as well. And that's fine, but I do want to emphasize that's not a name. The fact that they're calling it name is confusing to me. But it makes more sense now that we see that, oh, we're comparing name to things, which is delightful. What is TGA, TWC? Minas Morgul. Okay. And what on earth is that? Yes, it does look like a global variable, Baz, and I don't know where it's being used. So let's take a look. Interesting. Okay. So it looks like RP prog contains the progression levels. That's delightful. And thank you again to Duriel for documenting some of this in the TitanBar maintenance. I know Duriel put a lot of work into, or at least it looks like they did a lot of work documenting how to go about adding things when they took over management maintenance of the project. So that was really cool to see, and that's cool. Exo says, mix it up a little. Oh, wait, no. That says, I'm going to make up variables nowadays by throwing darts in the alphabet. Yeah, it does feel like that. And again, I think there's reasons why they've done it this way, but it does make it a little bit harder to jump in there. Exo says, mix it up a little. Don't use the Latin alphabet. Yeah. Okay. Goofing time. Local. Let's see. Oops. Interesting. Apparently Lua just doesn't want me to have symbols. Yes. Oh, that's interesting. Why wasn't this saved in UTF-8 to begin with? Huh. Fascinating. Okay. How do you feel about using emojis as variable names? Did you? There's a video or a series of videos by Tom Scott talking about how they made a text messaging app that you could only use emojis for both the messages and for usernames, and they made it kind of as a joke, but it creates challenges. I will not delve down all the various languages out there that really mess with things. Although there is a Arnold Schwarzenegger programming language. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so we have the bonus. We're getting stuff. We have the name of this. Oops. Got another alarm going off. Should do something about that. Get the... Oh, well, since the function is called get faction index from name, I don't really feel like a comment's going to add very much there. Okay. Check if new points is equal or bigger of the max points. Okay. So the name, we get this, and then we have seen in other places that P is going to be the current value. And again, this is where I would really be tempted not to use tot, which I assume is short for total, but split it out. That's the current value. And then we have a new one. Okay. We have the reputation points. We're going to add total to that. R is, I'm guessing, the max. I don't know why. But you know what? Let's go ahead and spit some of these out. So turbine dot shell dot right line, and we'll get P because that's what it's called here, to that, and then R, and we'll go ahead and write this out as well. And then anyone? Nope, that's all. Okay, so let's go ahead and reload TitanBar here. Baz is saying R and P. I think that's his new way of communicating. So I'm going to assume R is I'm very happy to be here, and P is you misspelled that, and that's why it's not loading. Those are probably the two important messages here. Why for, yes, you have guessed it correctly, that is how I'm communicating. Baz says, living the one life letter now, he's converted, or they've converted. I'm not going to follow you on that one. I like my letters too much. Okay, so we have Galadrum, we're at 4,600, awesome. Let's go ahead and do a message here. Awesome, I attempted to index a field in 539. Oh, I did do that before we got name. That's not going to be happy. All right, reload. Excel, but what do you do when you need a 27th variable? Oh, well, you have capital and lowercase letters, so you're good until you have, 52? Okay. I got another error, 547. Oh, because I got rid of V. That was really foolish of me. So if I were really clever, I would have a backup of this. I do have the one that I had earlier. Let's go ahead and load that and see what they were setting V to. I'm sure it was something important. All right, so function control, excellent. V local V equals that. There we go. Excellent. Baz is pointing out the extended ASCII set. Okay, we have this reloaded. Awesome. So, what are we seeing? We're seeing that 4,600 was the old reputation before it was increased, and we saw R equals 4. Now, knowing that ally is the usual 4th level of reputation, I'm guessing that that's what we're seeing here, is the level here. So, is that a reasonable guess? Let's see. Now, Galadrum, obviously, that's no longer useful. Let's play around. Let's come in here and say this is actually friend. Okay, so we see R jump down to 3. Yes. Neutral. I don't know if that's a valid value for neutral. R is 1. Okay, we're definitely seeing neutral acquaintance for R equals 2. Yep, okay. That's a very good way of figuring this out. Now, if I say kindred, it's going to be 5. Cool. Okay. So that's what we're doing with that. And in fact, I'm going to have to come in and fix this ally of... Oh, okay. That's fine. When you go to kindred, apparently it clears that out. That's fine. That's good behavior. So R... Okay, max is a very confusing term here. This should probably be the max reputation level. And the fact that we're calling something max and assigning it from something called R, not a great sign, right? R is probably rank. I don't know, is that the right in-game term for that? Let's see, reputation. Oh, actually we saw earlier, right? We saw that you're standing. So in English, I would expect that to at least be capital S, right? So in this case, standing is what I would call that. Now, am I brave enough to rename it? Oh, I don't know. So we'll go ahead and call it max equals current standing number. That is 4 equals ally. Okay, cool. BSPaz, I am critiquing the letter variable for being the wrong letter. Now, this is not a required thing, but I do recommend if you are naming things in your plugin, do try to find the term in game that they're using for it, at least right now. These things can change as we are seeing from, what are they called now? Traceries? Yeah, but you know, if the in-game calls it standing, go ahead and call it standing in your plugin. It's just going to make your life a little bit easier to think in-game terms. And if you have to, then you can collapse it down to S. Don't do that, but if you had to. Yeah. So, okay. So we now know this is a number, and it's representing that. Cool. Okay. Rep types. We've already seen this, I think. Oh, that's the length. Oh, right. Haha. So V is the type of reputation, like where does it start, where does it end? And rep types has an index. Oh my goodness. Let's take a look at rep types. Is it anywhere? Okay. Where on earth does that happen? Okay, how about just, there we go. Okay, so rep types, interesting. So you can see where they started having to add different things for different spans from the start to the end of a tier. So we have normal, and then we have for hell, and then we have extended normal, and then we have why another, which I assume was a documentation from someone like Duriel who took this over and is like, this seems identical to something that used to be here. Why did we have yet another entry? And who knows? It's fine. You know, code that works, and another one for the reclamation, because why not? I appreciate the comments. That's fantastic. So here's 15 for the Wildwood faction. So outsider to ally. Delightful. So I gotta ask, what is this? Okay, so those are language strings. Sure, that makes sense. So this is an array of language strings representing each level. Delightful. Okay. So rep types, this is the count. Okay, count how many language strings are used for this faction. And then if that equals that and the total is greater than 0, then set the total to 0. So if the maximum faction, if the current standing is the maximum standing, don't add anything. My goodness. So in a sense, there's some silliness here, right? I don't need to be deconstructing the logic, but I do feel it's a useful skill to practice occasionally is read someone else's code, figure out how it works. This is identical to reading some of your own code from 2 years ago, because if you are coding regularly, your styles will shift, your lessons learned will change. You will eventually kind of look on your old code as foreign code. It's just as bad to read as anyone else's. And it's not that code is hard to read, but it is, code that is different from what you're used to is hard to read. And so someone else's code, maybe it's objectively bad, but subjectively it's different. And that's the key thing. Expose yourself to different code. Get techniques to read that code. And if that just means line by line renaming things to figure out what's going on, then so be it, right? Like, it's a good exercise. And once I'm done with this, I'll be able to go back to the code as it was before I started touching all of it and have a much better intuitive sense of what each line is trying to do, even with the one-letter character names and even with the TitanBar abbreviations that we see all over the place. I'll be able to read that as more of an acronym or an initialism than just a spew of consonants, right? So on the one hand, yeah, this is effort, but I think it's worthwhile effort. It's like doing a tricky crossword or a tricky math problem, right? Like there's value in the discovery, even if someone else who already knew this code could make the change that we're trying to make in 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute. Yeah, Baz says, I cringe at the code I made last month. Absolutely. Ideally, as people who write code, we're going to continually improve over time. But even if we're not improving, we're definitely changing. That's just the nature of things. Exo says, so long as I don't look at my code, I'm happy with it. You know, there's a certain amount of it works and therefore it's good, but maintainability is a key component of long-lasting code. And yeah, looking back at our code, it can inform us of, oh, I am so glad I've done this, or when did I stop doing that? That was really good. Yeah, so, okay, so that being said, the logic here, if max equals last r, is really saying if the current standing is the maximum standing, don't add anything. Now, there's a certain question of why don't we just return? Like, what are we doing in this function, right? So, tot is 0 at this point. Total change. No, new total. We're going to mentally think of that as the new total. The new total, no. No. Yes. Because when you're at max, it internally stores that as 0 and it just knows you're full. It doesn't care. Okay, so new total, if that's greater than or equal to max, well, it's 0, so it's not going to be. If it's less than 0, no, it's not going to. Another way to set total equals 0. And then set the value equal to the thing and save it. But at this point, if we hit this, then we don't actually still need to be in this function, right? We were already at max. It should already be at 0. So that's kind of an invariant, right? We're at max, it's 0. You know, this is a pet peeve of mine. We can see here that the variable max is being used for 2 different things. In the first place, it's being used for the current standing, which isn't even a max. And later on, it is being used for the maximum amount you can get for that level, which is just so terrible. Obviously, it works. What's terrible about it is that if you do not know that little detail, you will foolishly assume that max is going to mean conceptually the same thing throughout the function. So it says call one max, the other max a million. No, I think it will not. Instead, what we're going to do is say, okay, everything above here, if it's called max, we're not going to call it that anymore. We'll call it current standing, right? And then we'll just use the fact that our text editor will highlight like things and say, okay, current standing, current standing, current standing. Now, current standing is a lot wordier, absolutely. Looks like we got it all. Okay, and then we'll need that one to be local max as well. Now, that's a lot wordier, but current standing and last R, do we use that anywhere else? We do use it one other place. Okay. So if we called that highest standing, then maybe this starts to make a little bit more sense. If the current standing equals the highest standing, and this is greater than 0, set it to 0. For the love of God, just rename V. I forget what V means. Oh, and that's funny. Apparently I moved it down there and I shouldn't have. That's what happened to it. I didn't delete it. Okay. Yeah, V is not the name I would use here. Unfortunately, it is used in a bunch of different places, and I'm worried if I try to do a multi-select on V, it's going to, it will find every V, and that's not good. So I'm not prepared to manually make that change. Exogenesis suggests replacing V with // looks like that is not a valid name in Lua, sorry. Otherwise, no notes. That's good. Okay, so current standing, cool. So RP prog equals default. So that's the progression through the reputation, as we have seen. And then we index through RPGR. What are you? Okay. Reputation GERS. What are you? Okay, so that's the amount you need to go past the next level. Why is it GR? Reputation growth? Okay, well that's just going to be a mystery. I do like Exogenesis's idea. Oh, sorry, Baz's idea. V will now be // but that would be a little bit silly even for me. Okay, so again, I would like a lookup table for these so that the reputation type is just an index into a table, and then oh, that's funny. So now that we think that's our current standing, we're doing a shift on our current standing. This is bonkers, is what I would say. It's not how I would recommend doing this, but it does seem to work, right? Unless it doesn't. There might be edge cases in here. That's okay. So we have the progression, how much we need to go to the next one. And the max, in this case, is the maximum of the current level. Awesome. Or is it? RG, our prog default equals, and then, oh my goodness, it uses what was named max. So it reassigns the concept. Instead of the current standing, max was then reassigned to be the maximum reputation for that current standing. I highly recommend never using the same variable name within a scope for multiple semantic purposes. It just really muddies the water. And again, here max would probably be better named as max reputation for the current standing level, but that's a little bit long. So max, okay. In this isolated context, maybe is not too bad. So what do we have? If the new total is bigger than that max, awesome. Then we're going to increase the reputation level that we're at. We're going to subtract the max from the total. So if the total was 20,500 and the max was 20,000, cool. Now we're 500 into the next level. Okay, that's awesome. So they're updating the ranking or standing, updating the rank +1. Neat. And if the total is less than 0, how would that even happen? Why would total be less than 0? Could it automatically support losing stuff? Player reputation R. We've seen R being 1. That says, I do love you getting more and more confused with this code. Yeah. Love is a way to feel about it. I am very excited about the amount that I do understand about this code. That's cool. Okay, so R. We already know the R is the ranking, the standing. The new R is, or do we? Was that what that was? Hang on a sec. Let's give myself some more reputation. Yes, okay. R was that. Oh, right, because R in that array there isn't the ranking, it's the index into the table of rankings for various faction types. It is faction type 1. Fantastic. Why? Okay, so So the two number of that is the new R. Is new R negative? If that's that, then the max equals that, player total equals. Is this for like infamy? Like, do you lose reputation or something? Are there factions where it's showing loss, but it's really gain? Exo says, I can't wait for old new R. Yes. I am surprised it's not there. Okay, so P and R, we saw this already. R is good. Here's the rank. This is the current ranking. So that two number minus one. Okay, so they're stepping backwards. Yes, okay. So if somehow it's below 0, then we need to roll back to the previous ranking. Awesome. Okay, is new R negative? First of all, why is that a global variable? It shouldn't be. It only shows up in these 4 places in the whole code base. Is new R negative equals new R? So that's the current ranking, which was 1 back. If this is 2 or 7 or 8 or 15, then is new R negative equals that plus 1. Why? We were doing an offset here, 2, 7, 8. Wait, why is this called out in its own case here, but it's collapsed here? B equals 8, and then currency minus 1. Okay, that's weird. But okay, we are adapting, we're doing the opposite of this here. If this new R is greater than or equal to 0, then max equals the maximum of the new ranking, player reputation equals that, tot equals tot plus max. So if tot's negative, okay, this looks like it is supporting negative numbers already, which is fantastic. Why didn't I try this an hour ago? No, I am missing an or statement. Okay, so let's go ahead and come back up here. We have, now that we understand what's going on, I feel comfortable starting to mess with it. So we have an increase or decrease. So we can go ahead and say that if increase or decrease equals, now this needs to be localized. Exo says the YouTube video of this better have a supercut of all the what, why moments at the end. I will not be doing that tonight, but I like where you're going with that. So we need increase or decrease. And what is that going to look like? Let's see. Increased is not already here. But do we have a reputation? We have all reputation names, all reputation standings, reputation changes. So L, oh, that's interesting. There's a player alignment, nice. So obviously we wanted to conform with the naming scheme a little bit. So reputation, increase or decrease. No, I'm just kidding. I'm only going to conform so much. So we're going to say increased, and then L RP decrease equals, how did we spell it here? Decreased, there we go. With a bunch of R's, P's, and L's floating through the screen. I think that would be very appropriate. Loretta says, we have another video we're working on. I hope we get to get out the door first. Yes, we do. It's all about bicycling in the Netherlands. It's going to be great. The edit screen is ridiculous. Actually, if you're used to editing, let me duck in here for just a second. Fit media. There we go. So if you are familiar with video editing software, this is what the current timeline of the project that we're working on looks like. And every little gap there is some sort of an edit, and it's almost done. So, you know, that's fun. Okay. Increase, decrease. So we have that. So what we're really looking for is just decrease. We don't really care about increased, actually. But if decrease equals the localization for decrease, then end. Oh, you know, we're not at the right point to invert it because we still need the points. There we go. Then RP points. No, RP PTS. This is murder on my autocomplete. Equals. I don't know if you can do the unary minus. We're going to find out. The unary minus instead of a binary minus is you only have one argument to it. The workaround is just to go 0 minus that amount, but I find that's a little bit more intuitive for me. So let's find out if they have that. Cool. Okay, we're gonna reload. And then we have 1600. Awesome. Now we have 2200. And then we just come in and let's go ahead and do a decreased by 8. What if it's an Easter egg, says Exo, and all the single letter variables can be put together to form a word? I do believe that's how words work. Okay, 2192. 2184. Awesome. So what we're seeing is it is correctly responding to that. But what's going to be really interesting is, will it respond to it in combat? So that's the first thing. And then will it correctly go down to the next standing? So let's go ahead and open this up. Set my Galadrum to the correct value of 29976. Save that. All right, 29976. 29976. Awesome. I stopped following my moose, but it hasn't wandered too far. It foolishly assumes I would never touch it. Okay. 29968. Oh, that's so cool. And with so little effort in the finished product. Like, obviously we've done a lot of code mangling, but the only things that matter are going to be really simple to shoehorn in there. The chat channel check, and the if it's increased or decreased, flip that around. Now, the other thing we do want to double check is, are we able to come back to the previous level? So first off, kindred. Let's start with kindred, because that, oh hey, there's another moose here. That's kind of the normal one I think about. I'm normally kindred with Galadrum, or maybe in league or Ale Association, and then I do something foolish like defeat an animal. And Galadrum, awesome, 29992. And then let's go ahead and get it really close to, we'll just call it 20. We're 20 points into ally now. Sweet. So if we go ahead and decrease by 8, we're at 12. We are at 4. Ah, yes, we are in friend. So it looks like the code that was already there was able to handle negative numbers, but they just never parsed the chat for it. Now, that's really interesting. I wonder if it was a missed feature. They meant to do it and come back to it. Like, the hard part's done. They just needed to parse the chat. Or did decreases in reputation maybe didn't come into chat the same way? Or they popped up on screen, but they didn't come into chat. There's all sorts of possibilities as to why that's missing. But the important thing is it's doable. and that is delightful. Okay, so what do we have? We have a change that I think I don't have time to package up tonight, but I have the makings of a patch. You know, I say that, but it makes me wonder if I do have time. There's enough here, and it's getting late here. So what I'm going to do is table that for now. But the actual patch may include some of these comments. These comments were really useful for me to think about things, especially when max is becoming two different things. I might go ahead and put those in since I'm changing the file anyway. And then, so next week might be about, okay, now we've done this, let's backpedal into a minimum patch where just the things we want to change are changing and none of the rest of this. So that'll be a fun thing for next time. In the meantime, I'm going to take a drink of water, but if there's any final questions or comments or whatnot, toss those into chat. Exo says, plugging along episode 17, Return of V. I think you mean backward slash forward slash. Okay, well, I think I no longer need to stand about in the middle of Lothlorien. Awesome. Well, this has been an exciting kind of deviation from the norm. A lot of times it's pretty obvious what we want to do and it's just about how to do it. And this time was a really fun exploration into just how do we figure out what current code is doing, given that we know it mostly works, right? Like we can work backwards from it works, how does it work? And so this was a fun little exploration into that. TitanBar is super awesome, super useful. And I'm excited to make it just a little bit better with this patch. So stay tuned for that. Okay. Well then, I think that is all we are going to cover for today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of Lotro plugins in general and TitanBar in specific. I do hope to see you next week. And until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.